Today, August 2nd, 20 years ago, in 1997, died one of the greatest black artists of all time, the Afrobeat master, Fela Kuti. Fela used his music for activism and to stand up for African and black people. But he died due to HIV-AIDS complications. Last week, at the International AIDS Conference on HIV Science in Paris, which was not attended by French President Emmanuel Macron, though he was supposed to be there, the US government of Donald Trump was criticized for its budget cut intent of $242 million in the global fight against AIDS, a decision which could lead to the death of up to 40,000 people yearly. Hi, this is Cream. Welcome to the first episode of SANKOFA's Black in the Light, an attempt to bring you the awareness, activism, and struggle of heroes in the Pan-Africanist struggle. Now, I'm not going to tell you about Fela Kuti, nor even talk against President Donald Trump. But instead, I'm going to tell you the story of the African child, the little boy who stood taller than men. His name was Nkosi Johnson. Born in 1989, a year of hope as the Berlin Wall fell during the Cold War, but as well a year of fear because of the pandemic that was HIV-AIDS. Nkosi was born to Natlanta Daphne Nkosi, an HIV-positive mother in South Africa. Nkosi, HIV-positive from birth, was protected and shielded from the fear, ignorance, and even violence of the community. But his mother, due to lack of funds for the care center that looked after her, agreed for him to be legally adopted by the care center manager, a white woman by the name of Gail Johnson. Now, I don't need to tell you about the apartheid context of race and racism in South Africa, but Gail Johnson gave a home and gave love to Nkosi. So much so that in 1997, the very year Fela died, Nkosi's mother, Natlanta, also died. And Nkosi came to public spotlight because at the tender age of 8, he was denied entrance in a school after a vote by the parents and teachers because he had HIV. This caused a public outcry because despite the high prevalence of HIV in South Africa, the Constitution forbids discrimination on medical status. Therefore, Nkosi took advantage of the spotlight given to him to stand up, to be a voice for the voiceless. This went so far as in 2000, he was the guest speaker at the 13th International AIDS Conference, which took place in Durban, South Africa. The importance of his speech is because of the denialism that still exists today, even in South Africa, in Africa and the world regarding HIV. That denialism, notably by South African President then, Thabo Mbeki, and his health minister, Shibalala Msimang, went to a point where Nkosi gave a passionate plea, a speech about humanity, and speaking against the dehumanization of people with HIV. He talked about us all being human, about caring for one another. Unfortunately, despite having traveled all the way to New York, meeting celebrities, and always speaking for the voiceless, at the tender age of 12, Nkosi died. But before he died, he founded a refuge with his mother called Nkosi's Heaven that looks after HIV-positive mother and their children. The efforts of Nkosi led to, in 2005, his mother, Gail Johnson, receiving posthumously an award from the International Children Peace Activism Award from Mikhail Gorbachev, the former First Secretary of the USSR, and also receiving a $100,000 Kids Prize for Nkosi's Heaven. His efforts went even further than that, because today, South Africa invests $2 billion a year in the fight against HIV, and its program, its national program, is one of the best in the world, addressing not just the homeless but also sex workers and the youth. As such, Nkosi's impact is still among us and is a reminder for us to stand up, to speak for the voiceless. Because in this world that's built on race and class, it's too easy to be comfortable and to be passive. Nkosi chose not to be passive. He chose to stand up. And as such, I invite you to stand up. Why? Today, August 2nd, marks the day when humanity has exceeded Earth's resources. And therefore, even though we're not even a level 1 civilization on the Kardashian scale, we are destroying our whole Earth just as we're destroying humanity. I invite you to stand up. Look at, for example, the American football player, Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick is standing up against police brutality, yet he's being confronted by other black athletes who are mentally enslaved in supporting the interests of the masters who oppress their own people. That is unacceptable. I support Kaepernick. I invite you to support him, just as I support Nkosi. I'm going to stop here, but I'm going to remind you, support Nkosi's Haven. Support my organization, the Caribbean Union of Canada, and stand up. Be a voice for the voiceless. Be the change for what you want to see. Next week, for SANKOFA's Black in the Light, I will bring you the story, the struggle of a woman, a mother, a wife who stood up. Until then, take care.